I'm going to show you the Mokume Gane technique using Primo Sculpey polymer clay. Now, Mokume Gane is a Japanese method of manipulating metal to achieve a wood grain appearance. Lots of polymer clay artists borrow from this art form to create magnificent patterns. When I start making a Mokume Gane pattern, I like to pick a light color, a dark color, and then I like to pick a metal color to add a little shine to the mix. What you do first is just layer up your colors. These have already been conditioned through my pasta machine on the thickest setting. Now I'm going to run this back through here and make it incredibly thin. One thing I love about this technique is you don't have to be precise. You can see how this is going off at an angle. It just doesn't matter. Mokume Gane is very free form, and it's very it's just not as rigid or precise as a lot of other techniques. Now I'm just resectioning the clay, and what I'll do is pile this back up, even these pieces that are not quite the right, what you might think of as the right size and shape, pile those up, and now I have lots and lots of layers of stripes. What you want to do now is just put a lot of pressure on this to kind of press the air out, and you're kind of deforming those layers as you go. Okay, now it's time for the fun manipulation part. I'm going to use some tools, and for this part you can use cutters or ball tools, whatever you want. Some forms of Mokume Gane even use a texture sheet to manipulate the layers of clay. So what I want to do is just start pushing really hard into this clay, and what's happening is as I'm pushing, I'm making those layers push down and around each other, sort of like the terrain or something, and each layer and color is going down through the ones under it. You can cut this with a blade, whatever you want. The more you manipulate it, the cooler it's going to look in the end. Now you can see with this couple samples here, this was done with thicker layers of clay, and this was done with thinner layers. And here are the bright green bullets. I'm going to show you how to put those in, but I want you to notice too, this would be an area where a green one was not placed. So what you can do is take a really contrasting color of clay and fill up some of these wells, and you just push it in there like so. Okay, and then if we leave some empty, then we'll get another different look. Now here's one that I've already filled, and I've already left some of them empty, and then what I did was I just went back and squeezed and squeezed and squeezed all around to fill up the air, to force out the air and fill up any pockets. We're ready for the really fun part now, is the slicing. Take a really sharp blade and always cut with the stripes, not across them, okay? Now at this point we're just going to push down evenly, and here's where we get to see the fun is revealed. From here, you can run this back through your machine to make a nice flat sheet. This can be used as a veneer on a bead or over a picture frame or a vessel. How beautiful is that? I want to show you a Mokume Gane method using a planned pattern instead of a random pattern. I have my 3 colors of clay already conditioned on the thickest setting. I've stacked those up so that it's 3 layers thick. I ran that back through on the thickest setting and made 9 layers. You want to have at least 9 layers in your slab. So now what I've done is manipulated this piece. I've used ball-ended tools, I've used chisels, I've used whatever I could get my hands on to make a nice dent down through this clay. Once your pattern is established, you do not press this back together to fill up the holes like we did before. We're going to leave the holes open so that they become part of the pattern. Now I'm going to shave with my really sharp blade. I've got it slightly bent so it cuts down through the surface of the clay, and I'm being extremely careful. Okay, so now what's cool about this method is even the shavings become useful. This shaving can go onto an already conditioned piece of clay. This one just happens to have some gold leaf which shines nicely through those holes. And so you can use the shavings as well as the slab and just keep cutting down through there as much as you want. This is a perfect method for making beautiful earrings, pendants, necklace sets, wrapping it around Bic pins. You're going to love doing this. It's going to become your new favorite technique. This is the Mokume Gane method using a texture sheet. I've rolled out 4 different colors of clay through the thickest setting on the pasta machine and stacked those up. Now here's the fun part. You want to experiment even with the order that you stack them, because just changing the order can give a dramatically different appearance even though it's the same colors. Stack those up, run them through the pasta machine on the thickest setting, then cut that in half, stack it again, and go back through on the thickest setting so that you have 8 layers thick in a very thin sheet. Now we're going to texture it. I'm just using water as a release between the clay and the texture sheet. I'm going to put a lot of pressure on here. I want absolutely the most deeply defined texture I can have without ripping the underneath sheet. Here's one that I've done really, really deeply. Okay? Now you're going to use an extremely sharp blade, and I want you to be so careful. Bend it slightly in the middle so it cuts down through the sheet, and I always work pulling toward myself as I cut. And the beautiful layers of colors are instantly revealed. What you'll have now is this beautiful sheet or a veneer of Mokume Gane patterns that you can wrap around ink pens or a business card holder. I hope that you'll really experiment and enjoy trying each of the Mokume Gane techniques using Primo Sculpey.